I'm Chef Frank, this is Protocooks, and today we're making gnocchi. Chef Frank, what is gnocchi? Great question. Gnocchi are dumplings. They're usually dumplings from Italy. In some regions, it's made with semolina. In some regions, it's made with cheese. The one that I'm going to focus on today is gnocchi made from potatoes, which I think is a little more recognizable to most Americans. This is what I got. Russet or Idaho potatoes. I want a starchy potato for this, not waxy. All-purpose flour or 00 flour if you have it. Eggs and salt. Making gnocchi is fairly simple. There's not a lot of ingredients, and it's all about the technique. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you my technique, how to make light and tender gnocchi. You don't really need a bunch of specialty equipment to make gnocchi. Now, they make gnocchi boards and you can buy them online, and these are a great little piece of equipment to have. You can make gnocchi, cavatelli with this, you can make garganelli, a lot of different pastas. I happen to make these in my workshop because that's what I do, and I happen to have them because I'm a chef, and having this piece of equipment is really helpful. It gives you really nice lines, and it helps you roll out the gnocchi fairly easily. If you don't have one of these, it's okay. Most people have a fork in their house, and I'll show you how to use the fork as well. So let's get to it and get our potatoes in the oven. The first thing we're going to do for our gnocchi is cook the potatoes. And a lot of chefs and people that make gnocchi will boil these. Here's the big difference. I don't boil mine, right? When you boil the potatoes, you have a lot of excess water. And I kind of feel like all that excess water is the enemy of making gnocchi. I like to bake the potatoes. Not only do I feel like you get a better, kind of more concentrated potato flavor, but it also eliminates all that excess water, you know? Normally when people boil the potatoes, they have to put them on a sheet tray and dry them out. If you bake them, I feel you get a better product. This is what I do. I take my potatoes, I leave them in the jackets, and I wash them. I will roll them in foil. Each potato gets rolled in foil, and we're gonna bake them until they're tender. About 350 for about 45 minutes. 30 to 45 minutes, okay? Potatoes are wrapped, put in the oven, let them roast. Potatoes are done. And this is how I test them. You just squeeze them, and they're soft. It's just like a baked potato. I have one more piece of specialty equipment. I didn't talk about earlier is a potato ricer. This is really important. If you don't have a potato ricer, I understand. You don't necessarily need one. You can break it up, but your gnocchi might have a little lumps in it, okay? What I do now is I'm gonna peel the potatoes. I take them all out of the jackets or all out of their foil, okay? They're roasted, and I like to peel these when they're hot. I like to make this dough while the potatoes are still warm. I think it just comes out a lot better. I don't want the potatoes to be hot, but I do want them to be warm when I mix it. Towel so I don't burn myself, right? My ricer goes on my bowl, okay? Get these out of my way a little, and I'm gonna peel. What I'm doing here is, when I peel my potatoes, I'm putting them in the towel. I'm just getting a little bit of the skin, pinching it between my knife and my thumb, and pulling it off. That goes right into the ricer. Again, so you'll see, I usually just cut the top off, but I get under the skin, pinch the skin between my thumb and the knife, and peel it back. Okay? Okay, this goes into the ricer. I got a few potatoes there. Squeeze, ricer. Gives us a nice smooth mixture. And we're gonna do this with all the potatoes. If you have a food mill, use a food mill. But if you don't have either of these, just use a potato masher and mash them up really good. Potatoes are riced. Just get them off. I use the back of my knife. I don't want to ruin my blade. Get all the potatoes off. And we'll mix. Potatoes are riced. They're still a little hot. So what I do is I push this up to the side. And I'm just trying to get some of the air. I'm trying to get some of the steam out. I'm not mixing the potatoes, I'm kind of cutting them. Just kind of get some of that steam out. You can see that my potato mixture is fairly dry, and that's what I want. I don't want this so hot that it cooks the eggs. I'm gonna add a little salt now, just to season this up, and salt needs to go in there. And I'm gonna mix my salt in, and again, I'm gonna do that cutting motion rather than stirring. Cut, fold over the top, and cut this in, okay? So I don't really want to stir too much here, right? Potatoes can get gluey when you stir them too much, okay? So this is still warm. I'm gonna crack my eggs in. 3 eggs to about 2.5 pounds of potatoes. If you get any shells, use the shell to get the shell out. Shell attracts shell, okay? And that's what I'm gonna do again. I'm gonna cut these eggs in. I'm not really gonna stir, I'm just gonna cut them in and fold. I don't really wanna start mixing this yet. I'm just kind of cutting them in with my rubber spatula. Cut, cut, cut. Okay, so now we're gonna add our flour. And I have about 2 cups of flour here. I'm gonna put in most of it. And again, I'm just gonna cut. I'm not going to stir. I'm just kind of cutting my flour in while I turn my bowl. So by the way, this method took me many years to figure out to get the right consistency. And folding, I'm not kneading it all at this point. You do have to knead this dough, but for the most part, I'm not doing that right now. Okay, so I got my flour, I got my eggs, salt, and potatoes, okay? I'm gonna turn it onto my board. I have kind of a crumbly mess. That's okay. I have a rubber bench scraper or a rubber scraper here. This is like a pastry chef's favorite thing. And what I'm gonna do is just kind of cut my flour a little more. Cut, cut, cut. So my flour is incorporated, and I'm gonna take this and start to lightly knead it and bring it into a ball, right? Lightly knead it and bring it into a ball, okay? If it's sticky, just a little bit of flour. We don't wanna put too much flour in this. Gather everything together and start kneading very lightly. Use your scraper to get everything off the board. Okay, lightly flour if it's sticking, right? And that's pretty much all that I want to do. A little bit of light kneading, bring it all together. And what I'm looking for here is that when I press in, does it spring back? It's not really springing back, right? So I want to just knead it just a little more. I mean, kneading doesn't take very long for this, but I just want to work it so that the dough gives me a slight bit of spring back. So we're kneading, just a touch more flour, just to keep it so it doesn't stick. And that's it. I think we're good. I think I'm gonna stop right there. I have a nice smooth dough. I press on it and I see a very slight spring back. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clear a spot off on my board. A little bit of flour, right? Just a dusting of flour on top. I have my dough. I have my kitchen towel that I peeled my potatoes with, and I'm gonna leave it covered. The dough is done. Look at that. Isn't she pretty? It's covered, right? And now we're gonna roll it out. And I have my gnocchi boards. I have a couple of pieces of special equipment. I'm gonna show you how to use the gnocchi board, okay? And I'm gonna show you how to use a fork, right? So it's important now, at this point, to put a pot of water up. So I always have a pot of water up when I'm rolling because I'm gonna blanch these or par cook them. And then I'll reheat them later. I think it just works best this way. You want the gnocchi to set up in the boiling water, and then you drain them really well, and then you can use them. You can bag them up and put them in the freezer, or you can just use them and reheat them in your sauce later. And that's usually what I do when I'm in the restaurant. So I have my gnocchi board, I have a fork, I have some bench flour, which is just flour to sprinkle on the table, and I have my bench scraper, and I have a cookie sheet or a sheet tray to put my finished gnocchi on, okay? So what we're gonna do is start with this, is I'm gonna just put a little dusting of flour. I'm gonna cut my dough. Look at the inside of the dough. That is nice, right? It's not wet and sticky. It is dry to the touch. Here is what you want to do, and the biggest mistake people make is they start to knead this again. And you don't want to start kneading it again. All I want to do is roll it into a long cylinder and roll it out, right? If it's a little sticky, just a little more bench flour. I find at this point, a little flour is actually not a bad thing. Roll it out into like a nice long snake. Okay? We roll it out into a snake. I get my bench cutter and I cut into little nuggets. So see my nuggets there? That's what I want. Cut my nuggets, and from this, I'm gonna shape my gnocchi. There's some people that will just take this and they'll just cook this and they serve it as gnocchi, and it's perfectly acceptable, right? Not a big deal. If you want to just cut them like this, you can throw them right into the water. But what I do is this. I take the gnocchi, I roll it into like a cylinder, and then I'm going to put the cut side down onto my board. I push to make a thumbprint and pull forward and roll it over, and I have a beautiful gnocchi there. Look at that. Okay? I'm going to do that a bunch more times. I'm going to dust my tray so that they sit on there. But the thing with a beautiful gnocchi is ridges on the outside, a small cup on the inside to hold the sauce, okay? I'm going to do that again and again and again. So cut side down onto my board, roll it off. Cut side down, push down, roll it off. You can see it's not sticking to my finger. It is rolling right off. We want that little cup. And to me, this is proper gnocchi. I'm sure I'll get Italian chefs that are shaking their fist at me and yelling, "That is not gnocchi," but this is how I learned. It did take me many years to kind of get this down. Just practice and messing with the dough, getting it to the right consistency. It takes a little practice, you know. You can make gnocchi with other vegetables, but believe it or not, I haven't had a ton of success with that. Sweet potatoes have a ton of liquid. Butternut squash has a ton of liquid, so I just stick with the potato. I think it's one of the best things, but that's up to you to experiment with. So again, get my dough, push down and forward on my board, and I have a beautiful gnocchi. Okay? Now, if you don't have a gnocchi board, let's put those aside. I have a fork. You can use the back of a fork. So you do cut side down, push down, and roll out. So your ridge is a little bigger, not as fine as the gnocchi board, but it makes a really nice gnocchi as well. So you turn your fork upside down, roll, flick, roll, flick. I'll do it from the side so you can see. That one I squished a little too much, but you have the ridges now. The gnocchi's rolled out. I got my water boiling, I have a tray. I'm gonna salt my water, okay? Whenever you make pasta, you want your water to be sea salty. So it looks like a lot, but you need to season your water. Sea salt. I put a little bit of oil on my tray, because what I'm going to do is take my hot gnocchi out of the water, strain them really well, and put them on my tray. And I don't necessarily want them sticking together. I'm not putting enough oil on the tray to make them really oily. I'm just putting enough on the tray to make them not stick. My water is at a full simmer. I don't want this to be at a hard boil, okay? Because if it's really boiling hard, the gnocchi kind of beats each other up and doesn't have time to set. I just want a nice bubbling simmer, right? Drop them in, splash all over yourself, get burnt, right? Now we're just gonna wait for them to come up to the top. I'll give a little bit of a stir so I make sure they're not sticking to the bottom. You can see they're starting to float to the top a little. I'm gonna let them float, cook. So what's happening right now is the egg and the potato starch is coming together. It's solidifying, and so these won't break apart when we put them in the sauce. Okay, so I'm gonna let these come up. So my gnocchi are floating. I'm gonna take them out, tap off all the excess water, spread them out on my tray, give them a shake, and I'm gonna do this until all of my gnocchi is cooked. Our gnocchi is cooked and cooled, okay? So at this point, you can take this. I usually freeze it on the tray. Once it's totally cool, you can take it, break it up, put it into a Ziploc, and you'll have gnocchi. Just reheat it like you would in the sauce, or you can cook it right now in the sauce. One thing I did do, I saved some of my pasta liquid. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna heat some of these up with a little bit of butter and give them a taste. And that's how I make gnocchi, or potato gnocchi. Check that out. Can you see it? Oh my gosh, I can't wait. All I did was heat these up with a little pasta water and butter, but you can put any sauce you want on these. Now, I'm sure there's traditional sauces you can put on them, but at the end of the day, it's your pasta. You make it how you want it. I like to serve these with a ragu or a meat sauce. They're delicious. Also, everyone's eyes are always bigger than their stomach. You don't need a lot of these. Even though they're light and fluffy, they do fill you up quick. So have a little and then get a little more if you're still hungry. But all the time, me and my family, we would make these. I make too big of a plate and we're all like, oh my God, I'm so stuffed, because they are filling. It's a potato dumpling. Okay, so let's give it a taste. light, pillowy, not too dense, absolutely delicious. And that's how I make my gnocchi. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, hit the little bell. We try and do a video a week. We have merch. We have Need Salt t-shirts. I control the salt t-shirts down below in the description. We have a Patreon account as well. Thank you, patrons, that I have already. You help us do what I love doing, cooking and teaching people how to cook. If you want to mail anything to us, we like to do mailbags or correspondence. In the description, we have a P.O. box you can send stuff to. But that's it. That's my gnocchi. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, have a good one.